Hey, hello everybody. Everybody doing okay? Okay, you got here. Hi Larry, how are you? I see everybody maneuvered around all the construction. And Cynthia, nobody fell into a hole, so I think we're okay. Okay, I'd like to open up this meeting. I'd like to call to order. And I don't think we need a roll call. I think we have, just you could look and see who's here. And we have a full committee today, except for Jeff. Oh, no, there you are. I didn't see you, Jeff. Okay, good. So we have a full committee today, so I'm really glad because today's a very important meeting. Okay. I'd also like to just report back. We did have the open hearing in the evening from the executive committee. Remember, that was kind of a compromise, and it went very well. We had people on video, and then we also had a large group coming, and everybody was very glad that we could give them the availability for an evening meeting. So thank you, staff, for putting that forward. It worked out very well. Nothing new. Most of the remarks were ones that have either come to our committee or that we've heard, through the grapevine. So, but it was good, and I was very glad the city was flexible. Okay, why don't we introduce the interpreter today?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon. My name is Elsie Duarte, and along with my colleague Mario Barajas, we will be servicing as interpreters in today's meeting. I will now introduce myself to our Spanish-speaking audience and review some guidelines. Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Elsie Duarte y junto con mi colega Mario Barajas estaremos sirviéndoles como intérpretes en la reunión de hoy. Al momento de hacer un comentario público, de favor les pedimos que hable despacio, con claridad y deténgase después de cada pocas oraciones para interpretarle de la manera más completa posible. Gracias. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you very much, and thank you for interpreting for those who need it. All right, we do have minutes from the last meeting. If anybody's had time to read them, if I could get a motion to move them forward. Anybody want to move that motion? Move it.
Madam Chair, I move that we approve the minutes from the last meeting.
Okay, a second. Okay, I'll second. All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, a unanimous vote to move them forward. Okay, during this meeting, we'll be going over follow-up items, and Cynthia will be presenting those as she has in the past. And we also received comments from the public, which you have, and she'll be going over a few of those, but I think most of us read them already. And we'll ask that we continue to read more input. The last item today will be public comment, and then we'll have committee discussion on the very important fact of the surveys and ranking. So we'll have a comment on that. As we hear presentations and public comment, I will ask that members keep in mind we have a limited time to reach our whole recommendations today. So we're going to have everybody do 2 minutes. And if you're in a group and want one member to speak for you, we would appreciate that. And at the end of the meeting, we will need to have defined the universe of projects that we want to consider for ranking and evaluation. And then we will, after we have discussion on that and determine what we want to rank, we will be given instructions on the survey and how we will be filling that out at home. And then our next meeting will be evaluating that survey. Very, very important. Our next agenda item is for follow-up discussion and public comment. Cynthia, I'll turn it over to you.
Sure. Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the subcommittee. Again, I'm Cynthia Aguilar, Parks and Recreation Director. I'm going to start off my presentation with just another brief overview of the Parks and Recreation GEO bond projects. As you'll recall, we presented a total of 13 prioritized projects that fall into the 5 categories on this slide. Again, as a refresher, these projects were based on parameters we were provided with, which include only capital projects costing greater than $500,000 with minimal operating cost increases, such as the design and construction of buildings and infrastructure, and major renovations or improvements to existing assets to extend their life or increase service levels. These projects were reviewed, refined, and prioritized by the city's Fiscal Capacity Committee to create a balanced bond project or a balanced bond package with projects across the city in areas identified as City Council priorities. The total cost for these projects was $109 million. In addition to the 13 prioritized projects, you asked us to provide you with information on 3 new projects. These projects included a new recreation center at Esteban Park, renovations to the historic Grant Park bathhouse into a recreation facility, and funding for minor capital projects that would allow neighborhoods to apply for new or enhanced amenities in their neighborhood parks. These projects originally totaled $6.6 million. I do want to note, as we further reviewed these projects, in regards to the Esteban project, we have added $500,000 to that project since it was a new project, because we realized what was not factored in was the cost to do an archaeological assessment. And that site does require us to do extensive archaeological work before we begin any construction there. And so the total capital cost for the 3 additional projects that the subcommittee directed us to bring information on is at $7.1 million. Also, the direction we were given by the subcommittee at the last meeting was to go back and review our cost estimates for each of our projects to determine if scope reduction was feasible to help reduce the cost of our overall package to $109 million while keeping the 3 new projects that were presented. And again, those were Esteban, the Grant Park Bathhouse, and the minor capital fund for neighborhoods. We did reassess each of our projects and have identified a total of 4 projects where scope reduction could be achieved if that is the direction of the subcommittee. I will start my presentation with those. The first is South Mountain Park. And just a reminder, South Mountain Park was established in 1924, and it sees about 2.5 million annual visitors. The original proposed project was to complete 15 miles of roadways throughout the park over the course of 4 years. This slide will show you how that breaks out over the 4 years. And in earlier years, it's a little less expensive because some of that cost is for the design work to be completed before the project. If we were to reduce the scope of this project, the only real way to do it would be to eliminate the $4.9 million in funding that was set aside for fiscal year 27-28. And I do want to note that if we did that, that eliminates a little more than half of the roadway improvements that were scheduled to be completed in our original proposal. So that would leave 8.6 of the original 15 miles of road work, particularly in our lower park roadways, uncompleted or incomplete. We would not get to do that work if we reduce the scope in this manner.
Cynthia, can I just ask a question? So you couldn't just eliminate 4, you would eliminate a whole 8?
We would eliminate, correct. So what we would eliminate is that funding you see in the 4th dot point for fiscal year 27-28, $4.9 million.
Okay.
That's what we would cut, which means 8.6 miles of roadway would not get improved. So the original submittal was 15 miles. If we take this out, that would reduce that total by 8.6.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Jeff?
I have a question, Ms. Aguilar. As you looked at that reduction, 50% reduction in the number of miles, did you also look at were there any other opportunities to replace that funding with something like 3PI? I mean, are we basically scratching off half of those road improvements forever or until the next bond program, or are there other opportunities to find funding to do that work?
Madam Chair, members of the subcommittee, that's a great question. So we would definitely look towards other sources of funding. 3PI could be one of those sources that we looked at to still get that work done.
Great, thank you, Ms. Aguilar.
Thank you, Jeff, for asking that question. Elizabeth?
Jeff asked it for me.
Okay, so even though we reduced it, there could be money in another part of the budget.
Madam Chair, that's correct. Our goal would be to look for other funding sources in hopes of still completing that work.
Okay, thank you.
The next projects we looked at, there are the additional 3 are listed all on this slide. The South Mountain Community Center and the Washington Activity Center both had proposed renovations in the original 13 projects we submitted. As we went back to these projects, Again, it was very hard to reduce scope on any of these, but we identified that we could reduce $1 million out of both the South Mountain Community Center improvements and the Washington Activity Center improvements. That would essentially lead to us delaying or having to find other funding sources to do restroom renovations in both of these facilities. So that would give us $2 million to work with if the subcommittee directed us to do this. And the fourth project is the Telephone Pioneers of America Park. There was our original proposal for 2.7. We have identified that we could reduce that scope by about $500,000. It would not eliminate upgrades and enhancements to the facility. It would eliminate our ability to demolish what cannot really be described other than a large hill, if you will, of dirt. It's a large mound of dirt that has existed for many years, and it's very problematic because it restricts, it causes vandalism. People are using this mound to make their way to the rooftop of this building and cause issues. So, but that was something we could also look for other sources of funding to complete if needed. In total, the 4 projects I just reviewed come out to just over $7.4 million in scope reduction, if that's the direction that we're given.
Madam Chair, I have a comment and a question. Cynthia, I first, thank you for putting all this together. I know we've had a couple meetings and keep asking you for things, so I really appreciate all staff's work on this and everyone who came to the meeting last Wednesday. My concern is, when we're cutting, are the cuts going to be equitable? Like, I already feel that there's more and this is not to say that all communities don't deserve equal amount of investment. I want to make that very clear, but it is seeming like there is more investment in parts of the city. Like, I brought it up at our first meeting. There was only one thing in District 3 that I had seen for this. And, you know, constituent in District 3, a constituent in District 6 still are a constituent of the city of Phoenix. So if we're going to cut, is there a way to make the cuts more equitable, right? Like, Washington was the only thing in District 3, and it's being cut. So is there a way that we can not cut Washington and cut maybe from another area where there's multiple projects in the district?
Sure, that's a great question, Madam Chair, members of the subcommittee. That is something that we looked at, and if you, one thing that was helpful for us, it might be helpful for you too, is that map that was sent out previously had the red circles and showed the distribution of projects throughout the entire city. And so we did use that for this. South Mountain is obviously in South Phoenix, but it covers districts 6, 7, and 8 from a council perspective. Washington Activity Center is actually in District 5 in Northwest Phoenix, and then Telephone Pioneers is in District 1. So we did very much, I appreciate you noticing, you know, that that's something we should consider, because that's something we definitely want to be sensitive to.
I appreciate it. Thank you. And I probably got confused because the Washington Elementary goes in there as well. But that is something that I want to be mindful of, to make sure that when this bond goes to the voters, right, that everybody feels that they have a stake in the game and that they are going to vote for this because, you know, my community is getting something out of this, you know, and not to say that they wouldn't vote because other communities are getting more, but it comes into the tug and pull of everybody getting their fair share. So, thank you.
Sure.
Gary?
That brings up a point of concern. So I come from a political background and been involved with the last 4 parks elections. And one of the things that we always were mindful of was balance. And as I looked at the map, and I didn't need, because I'm Phoenix native, but I didn't need the map, but the map was very visual for me. And as I looked at, I'm talking in a broader perspective here. When I looked at the map, and you can look at Camelback or you can look at Northern, and you can look at the number of projects, let's say, above Northern or Camelback, and below, it's 80 to 85% below. And when you look at the funding, it's the same. And so this committee isn't going to make the decision on whether these projects are fulfilled. Neither is the executive committee. Neither is the city council. But it's the voters. And I think it's fair for us to expect the voters of Phoenix to say, what's in as I look at this particular bond, what's in my neighborhood, what's in my city council district. And I would actually urge the city to come back and offer a more geographically balanced program.
Okay. Any other comment on these changes? Okay. Cynthia, just one comment. You know, Washington, I'm pretty familiar with that mound. Couldn't we get, you know, there are always unions who have apprentices who need to do stuff. Couldn't we get somebody to help us just take it down?
Madam Chair, members of the subcommittee, that's absolutely something we can look into as well.
Yeah, because it's a big, but I know there's a lot of like just projects that people are always looking to teach apprentice, and maybe that's something that we can do. So before we go much further, I'd like to recognize Alan Stevenson. He's here today in place of Ingrid, and welcome to our meeting, Alan. Alan was the head of planning for many, many years, so he can guide us as to whether we're making good planning issues on. Thank you for
Madam
coming.
Chair. Happy to be here and help.
Thank you. The other thing, too, on Gary's comment, you know, the fund that we will consider today is the the 500,000 for discretionary projects. Perhaps because of Gary's concern and Elizabeth's comments, maybe we should raise that to 1.5, because if we do, that would make it more accessible for some of the areas who feel they're slighted. You know, you could look at some of the issues in the north area. If Gary, you think they're not, you know, perhaps getting enough, or the west area, but that money could be put into discretionary, and that way people could have access if something comes up. Gary, you want to comment?
I do. I absolutely agree. And there's not one project of the 13 that isn't needed.
Yeah.
That's so obvious. And so when it comes time to vote, that will in a way be heart-rendering. Or of the 15 of Esteban Park. And I get it. But at the same time, we have to look at the end game too. So I agree. And the more flexibility, the better.
If everybody is okay, we would like Cynthia to raise that to 1.5 with, you know, the parameters that it is something that's planning or money that people could use for various projects that there is no other funding for. So, okay. We had talked about that, chillers, you know, just, you know, court, things like that we could really look at. So, okay. All right. All right. Well, thank you, Cynthia, for doing that. And I think the cuts, you know, are something that we can look at, particularly because of Jeff's question that you could find the funding, particularly for South Mountain, because of roads and the safety issues. So we'll go on that. And when we come back to talk, we'll go over the priorities. So with that.
And Madam Chair, we still have
Yes.
more
Oh, go ahead,
slides.
yeah.
Yep, and so we can continue if this discussion is
Okay.
done. Okay. Also, information that was requested at the last subcommittee was to bring back information on bikeways and some of the projects that are proposed in the GEO bond process with the Street Transportation Department. And so we're fortunate to have our Street Transportation Director with us today, Kenny Knudsen, and I'll turn it over to Kenny.
Okay.
Thank you, Cynthia.
Hi.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the subcommittee. Just to have a quick few slides here to kind of talk about what's both in the GEO bond program on the street storm drain side of it, but also things we're doing from a bikeway perspective in the Street Transportation Department outside of the bond program. So when it comes to bicycle facilities, when it comes to the bond program, we have 7 programs, potentially funded programs within the Street and Storm Drain Subcommittee purview. These are shown here. We have an equity-based mobility program, pavement maintenance supplement, storm drain replacement, neighborhood traffic mitigation, Vision Zero implementation, and then 2 drainage projects related to Hohokam and the Levine drainage areas. The 3 in here that could potentially involve additional bike lanes or bicycle facilities are the equity-based mobility, pavement maintenance, and Vision Zero. I note those because in the equity-based mobility, that program is all about providing connectivity between neighborhoods and transit corridors. That's why it was set up. It was actually originally funded through the Transportation 2050 program, but there's a large shortfall in that program through the T2050 funds, so the GeoBond program funds, if this was to stay in the program, would help fund those kinds of projects. The pavement maintenance, when we are in a big push pavement-wise through a couple different programs in the Street Transportation Department. This pavement maintenance program would be focused in on residential streets. It has the ability to be able to put new street pavement down if there is an opportunity to be able to put additional bike lanes or improve bike lanes. With the overlay work and the new striping that goes in, we can do that as well as part of the program. And finally, the Vision Zero implementation. We had a unanimous approval by Council on September 7th for our Road Safety Action Plan, and we had appropriated some funding within that program, but this would actually, if this GeoBond program funding goes through, it would provide additional funding to be able to implement faster the safety measures to provide more safer streets for vehicles, pedestrians, bicyclists, however anybody interacts with the roadways. So this could potentially also work to improve or provide new bicycle facilities.
I had just a comment. I've noticed on 3rd that the bicycle lanes are going up from downtown north. They look really good. It looks real safe. Are they being used a lot?
Madam Chair, members of the subcommittee, are you referring to the ones on 3rd Avenue or 3rd Street?
3rd Avenue.
3rd Avenue? Yes. That was part of our improvements to our Sonoran Bikeway corridor. And we are actually, we've completed a project from Roosevelt all the way up to McDowell to have actually our first two-way protected bike lanes. And we're actually in the process of beginning construction later this fiscal year on an extension of that from McDowell up to Thomas. So we have that plus additional movement going up on 3rd Avenue. And yes, it is become a better facility, very attracted to bicyclists and keeping bicyclists safe too by keeping a physical barrier between them and the vehicle
I
traffic.
travel that roadway a lot, and it doesn't hold up traffic because usually there's not traffic jam there. So, but very good. I ride a 3-wheel bike, and I thought, oh, finally a safe place.
And we also have, Madam Chair, we also have traffic signals with bike only phasing as well, if you've seen that as well.
Okay. Well, very good. And just because you're here, are you going to be looking at taking 3rd down to the river?
3rd Avenue, we don't have plans right now, but 3rd Street, we have a project that we're working on right now to be able to provide, because if you might know, there's a construction project that we're just wrapping up right now between Fillmore Garfield up to Indian School to be able to change the configuration of the roadway there. We have a project we're going to be working on the planning phases to connect from the north end of that down to about Lincoln Street. And then we have another project between Lincoln and the river that is actually under a pre-design effort right now too. And then we might have heard that we got a $25 million grant from the federal government announced last month that allows us to be able to build a bridge across the river along the 3rd Street alignment.
A bicycle bridge?
It's a bicycle pedestrian bridge, so no vehicle traffic on there, just bicycle peds, and also improvements to the pathway along the south end of south side of the south banks of the river.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Any other questions on bike lanes? I know, Jeff, you had a
Madam Chair, if you don't mind, Kenny, thank you for the information on this. I was the one, I think, who brought up this information about the bikeways, and I've been having conversations with Cynthia about it for quite a long time. I ride with a group of friends that are basically retired City of Phoenix employees, and we've ridden on the bikeways, not so much bike lanes on the street, but we try to stay off of the street and stick to the separated bikeways along the canals and things like that. And we've ridden all over from Mesa, Scottsdale, Tempe, through Phoenix, into Glendale, out to Peoria. And I guess I'll just use it since I got a minute to comment about this. The condition of those bike paths along those canals and so forth in Phoenix are probably in the worst condition of all the cities we ride in. So that's why I keep bringing this up. The maintenance levels aren't there. Renovation of lighting and landscaping and things that fit with the city council priorities for climate and cooling and trees and all that stuff just don't seem to be there. That's why I keep bringing these issues up about those bike paths and bikeways that are off the street. I did have a chance, and I'm sorry, I've been traveling. I didn't have a chance to really go to the street bond committee, otherwise I probably would have learned more about it, but I did have a chance to talk at length to one of your staff members about it. And she, talked to me about the things that were in the bond program and other mechanisms that you have to fund some of these things. And I just think there's a lot of complicating factors in this. You know, some of the areas of those bike paths are maintained by parks, some are maintained by you, some are maintained by the flood control district. It's a very, very complicated who's responsible for things like that. But as we go out there, you know, I definitely see our staff working hard. Just this last week when we were out on the bike path, we ran into one of the maintenance people out there picking up all kinds of very bad stuff in those underpasses, painting out graffiti, working hard to try to make it a good experience. But I still think that we need to keep that in the back of our minds, that, you know, we're all looking for better opportunities to get out of our cars and, you know, use human mobility to get around and do it in safe ways that are clean and safe and shaded, all those things. So those are my comments on that. I know you're doing the best that you can, and I feel much better after having talked to your staff person that there actually is some things in the bond program specifically related to bike paths and bikeways, and I appreciate that. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I do have one additional slide just to talk about some of the things we are doing outside the bond program. I did mention the Phoenix Transportation 2050 program. In that program, which is a program that provides funding to the Public Transit Department and the Street Transportation Department, one of the goals within there is to have established 1,080 new bike lane miles before 2050, and that's a goal of about 30 miles of bike lanes per year, and we are on that goal or ahead of that goal, exceeding that, to be able to establish new bike lane facilities and improve bike facilities as well for our residents. The second one is the Accelerated Pavement Maintenance Program. This is a program that the City Council approved the advancement of $200 million of pavement maintenance work on our major streets, and we've used this advanced paving project as well to be able to provide that clean slate for our restriping of streets, to be able to either provide new bicycle facilities or enhanced bicycle facilities as we do those repaving projects. As a subcommittee member Spillman noted, our active transportation program is very, very busy and doing a lot of different projects, both through across all the different aspects, but also looking at micromobility. And they are very active in this development of this program. They're actually working on an active transportation plan for the entire city, which is the evolution of what we had before back in 2014, the Bicycle Master Plan. And then finally, I think more to what subcommittee member Spillman was talking about, it was our canal-scape projects. We completed a few years back a Grand Canal escape improvement project, putting multi-use paths on the Grand Canal between I-17 to our Tempe border. We have a project that we're actually going to start construction later this year on Grand Canal Phase 3, which is from 75th Avenue to 47th Avenue on the west side over in Maryvale. And then we also have a project that's going to be starting construction earlier next year in calendar year for the Western Canalscape from between 3rd Avenue and 24th Street. And so there's projects that we're working on through that, and those projects we utilize funding through the SRP Aesthetics program to help us do those programs because they're outside of our right-of-way, so we have to use another funding source. But there are programs to be able to kind of reclaim the canals to become a recreational facility that is people feel safe and comfortable using. It is a process to be able to do that. We know that it historically has been a difficult kind of environment to be able to recreate in, and we want to change that by providing lighting, better facilities, and more eyes on the canals.
Okay, thank you. Is the county helping at all? Because they do have monies also for aesthetics for some of the, like Levine, the conveyance channel. They have to keep it clean anyway. Are they assisting at all?
Madam Chair, I'm not sure about any funding we're getting from the county, but that's something I can check on with staff.
Okay, because when I was at the county super board, we did have a fund from a facility that wanted to expand a waste treatment plant. And when they did that, they put money into an aesthetics program. And part of the canals was what they were talking about, you know, because I do agree with you, they're real rough sometimes, and they're really used a lot. So you could check with them and see if it's still there. Okay,
Thank you.
Tell them I sent you, they'll appreciate that. Okay, thank you, sir. Okay.
Madam Chair, members of the subcommittee, I'll continue the presentation now. Thank you, Kenny. You also at the last meeting asked for information on some of our operating agreements.
Yes.
And additional information about a few organizations that you heard from when we last met. So we did send copies of those 2 operating agreements to the subcommittee in advance prior to the meeting, but I will give just some information on each of those 3 organizations as requested. The first is the Phoenix Center for the Arts, and I'll begin my presentation with a very brief overview about the property itself. And this is the property that is occupied by the Phoenix Center for the Arts. This photo shows an aerial view of the property, which is at Margaret T. Hance Park. And just like the park, these buildings are technically owned by the Arizona Department of Transportation. The Parks Department entered into an agreement with ADOT to develop the park in 1988. And then in 1991, we entered into a lease agreement for use of the Performing Arts Center buildings. In 1995, we then entered into our initial agreement with the Phoenix Center Association to deliver arts and culture-related programs and activities in partnership with the Parks Department. The current agreement that we have that you received a copy of was entered into in November of 2017 and is set to expire in 2027. So you can see that since we entered into that original lease through now, we've worked many years with partner organizations to provide arts and culture opportunities in this space. Per our agreement, the space is intended to be used to study, create, and promote the appreciation of art history and culture by providing the public with a variety of educational and cultural experiences. The subcommittee received copies of our current operating agreements again, but I still wanted to just highlight some of the key areas of responsibilities. We want to recognize that we, like a typical landlord, are responsible for the kinds of things you would expect us to be: roofs, doors, windows, flooring, HVAC, plumbing and restroom fixtures, fire alarm systems, and other things that you see on the slide, including a basic interior security system. Things that are the responsibility of the Phoenix Center for the Art. There's a financial responsibility. They pay 50% of their utilities. They currently do not have a rent obligation, but they are responsible for things more in line with running the facility as an art center: specialty lighting, theatrical curtains, fixed seating, special temperature controlled spaces that may be needed for special equipment, and some other examples of furniture and equipment that are listed on this slide as well. We have taken the time to review the original proposal that was submitted by the Phoenix Center for the Arts. The original proposal totaled over $13.5 million, noting a variety of interior renovations, renovations to the existing theater, and renovations to create a theater in the north building. Since the original proposal, I do want to note that new theater renovation was removed from their proposal because that is a separate building that they do not currently have the right to use under our current operating agreement, and that building has been allocated for another purpose, if you will, currently. So they have reduced their scope by eliminating that request. Excuse me. Also, as we reviewed the proposal that was submitted, we did go through and identify things that there are clearly things that are our responsibility and their responsibility. So again, the things that we know are our responsibility are things like the restroom renovations, HVAC improvements, flooring replacement, and then the other things that we kind of went through on this slide as well. So I'm sorry, it's a little duplicated there. But what I really wanted to get to were the next steps. Naturally, these are old buildings, and we've invested millions of dollars in these buildings over the years since we began leasing it from the Arizona Department of Transportation. We have met with our partner on multiple occasions more recently. We did come to an agreement on the things that are the most immediate needs in the facility, and I will tell you that those are things like roof replacement. The roof has had multiple repairs over the years because that's what was warranted at the time. We did have a contractor go out very recently and do an assessment, and they agree that a full replacement is needed for the roof on these buildings. Also recently, an electrical panel went down, and we're in the process of repairing that currently. And also there is some flooring, especially in some rooms in one of the buildings that has significant damage from some of the water that leaked through from the roof, and some wall repairs as well. So these are things that we've both agreed are immediate. They quite honestly can't wait for the bond. So we've identified money to take care of these repairs. We believe it's about $200,000 to do that. And so we hope that's good news, because that is something that's already in the works, and this process has moved so fast, we need to regroup with our partner and talk about what this looks like and make sure it's done during a timeline that works for them. Also, then the next step would be to develop a plan to address future capital needs. So some of the things that are in the plan are things that, in our opinion, would be things that are not as immediate as those that I just described, but that we can create a timeline for to address in the future. And there are also things that you will see that are in there that are not the responsibility of the City of Phoenix per our operating agreement. Those are requests for other things that, again, would not be our responsibility contractually.
So Cynthia, the things that you mentioned, because I think all of us were concerned when we read the material we got and also the presentation with the health and welfare things, the roof and the electrical panel and the uneven floors. Those are like things that are safety. Is that correct?
Madam Chair, members of the subcommittee, those are certainly things that we want to address right away. Health safety, we don't have a report that shows anything truly of health safety, but that when we go in and do the work, there'll be full testing for things that we would consider health safety, like asbestos and mold and any of those things. We would have all of that tested, and if confirmed, then it would be remediated before the work is done.
Okay, and we're going to do that with city money.
Yes, we've identified the funding for those immediate needs.
Okay, thank you.
The second organization that you asked for information on, that you also received a copy.
Oh, hold on just a minute. Were there any questions on the Arts and Culture Center? Okay. Okay, go ahead.
Cynthia, just one, Madam Chair. Where are the funds coming from?
Sure, Madam Chair and members of the subcommittee, those would be 3PI funds, so Phoenix Parks Preserve Initiative funds.
Okay. Science Center?
Sure. So the next organization is the Arizona Science Center. We also sent a copy of the agreement with the Arizona Science Center to you. Just for some quick background, the initial agreement was entered into in 1996 for use of the buildings and the land. I think everyone's familiar where this is located, but it's at 600 East Washington Street. Then there was a subsequent agreement in 2009 for use of both the Science Center and the History Museum, which is also on the property here, and these both sit at Heritage Square Park. The current agreement, it's a long-term agreement. They're a wonderful partner, just like the Phoenix Center for the Arts. It expires in 2056. And here's just a general comparison of types of things, again, that we're responsible for versus what the Arizona Science Center is responsible for. They also pay 50% of their utility, or I'm sorry, we pay 50%, and they obviously also pay 50% of their utility payments. And then similar as the last organization, things that a landlord would typically be responsible for: HVAC, plumbing, bathrooms, in this case elevators as well, flooring, roofs, things of that nature. And then the Arizona Science Center is responsible for their operating expenses, and then maintenance and operation of their premises, regular repairs from normal wear and tear, and then maintenance and operation of their exhibits, signage, and any other improvements on the property. The total cost of the submittal you receive from the Arizona the Arizona Science Center is over $6.8 million, and this includes work like new classrooms, reconstruction of a gallery, improvements to the entryway, additional and upgraded restrooms and drinking fountains, some lighting improvements, and an open air courtyard. We've also reviewed this request, and we believe there could be some lighting work that would be the responsibility of the City of Phoenix, but based on our initial interpretation, the rest of them would be considered expansions, enhancements, improvements that under our current operating agreement would not be the responsibility of the City of Phoenix. Doesn't mean that it doesn't warrant them. It just, I was asked to share information on what we're contractually responsible for and what we are not contractually responsible for.
So we have completed our side, and that if they need the plumbing and that, we go in and fix it all the time.
Madam Chair, members of subcommittee, that's correct. And so we do regular work orders with all of our partner agencies to complete day-to-day work order repairs for things that are our responsibility.
And in our estimation with staff, the request then is primarily expansion.
Yes, Madam Chair, members of the subcommittee, we are calling them expansions or enhancements or improvements.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Sure, and the last organization you asked for additional information on is the USS Phoenix Cold War Memorial. This site shows Steel Indian School Park, which is where the memorial was approved to be located. But just for some history, the USS Phoenix Commission was created in 1990, sunset in 2009. Just prior to that, the Parks and Recreation Board at the time approved this concept for a memorial to be located where that yellow circle is on the southeast portion of Steel Indian School Park. Since 2008, we have kept in regular communication as they've been trying to raise the funds that are needed for this site, so we've certainly had ongoing discussions with them. The proposal for this project is $2.2 million. There's not an operating agreement between the City of Phoenix and this organization, but there is that Parks Board approval from 2008, which is what granted approval for them to continue their fundraising efforts to see this through.
Did he tell us to date how much they had raised?
Madam Chair, members of the subcommittee, I don't know if we have someone from the organization, but I believe it's about $100,000.
Okay. Any questions on that? Okay. Cynthia, thank you. You gave us a thorough review, and thank you very much. Any questions on any of those projects?
Just a confirmation, Madam Chair, these will not be included in what we're going to move forward with, right? These are just information.
Not unless we wanted to.
Yeah, Madam Chair, members of the subcommittee, that's at your discretion.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and that finishes up your report then. Okay.
Yes, that concludes my presentation, and we can certainly take questions, or I know Chris is prepared to talk you through the project ranking method next.
Okay, and just for the general public, even though now we're going to go into the survey and what we're going to be doing, we're still going to take public comment, and it doesn't mean that we still can't ask questions on that. If we have something that we want, Cynthia will again give us a report at our final meeting that we can evaluate. That's correct, isn't it?
Yes, Madam Chair, we can come back with any additional information you request.
Okay. What the things that we evaluated were what has come to us in the first two meetings. So, all right. Now we turn it over to our lawyers. Okay.
Our budget office, Madam Chair, Chris Fazio, Deputy Director from Budget and Research Department. Unless you'd like to go to public comment first?
If you'd like us to, we could, and then leave the survey for last. Okay.
My presentation is more procedural, so that may work well to take public comment first.
Why don't we then move into public comment? Okay. And I think we have somebody who's going to call out names.
Madam Chair, if I may.
Yes.
From the Law Department, Patty Boland, give an admonition with respect to public comment.
Okay, yes.
Madam Chair, members of the subcommittee, members of the public may speak to comment on the general obligation bond program. The city code requires speakers to present their comments in a respectful and courteous manner. Profane language, threats, or personal attacks on members of the public, subcommittee members, staff are not allowed. A person who violates these rules will lose the opportunity to continue to speak. The subcommittee and staff cannot discuss or comment on matters related to pending claims or litigation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And if there is information that Cynthia can give us after you speak, we will ask her, because some of these projects may be already in funding mode, and if they are, we'll get instant information. If not, we'll get it at our next meeting. So are we ready then for the first speaker? Okay.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay.
Our first speaker in upper council chambers will be Sandra Bassett, followed by our first virtual speaker, Billy Shields.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the subcommittee, members of the City of Phoenix Parks and Rec. We were asked at the last meeting to provide additional clarification and detail as to our project, and what you have in front of you provides that additional information. We have separated out that which belongs to Parks and Rec as requested, and that which goes to arts and culture. And you will see that reflected with the last two tabs of this book, which takes out the cost for theater. In terms of the conversation regarding the repairs and improvement that we have requested, we have not received full details from the city as to what they have defined as critical and health and safety. So we are unsure at this time as to what they're proposing to fully do in their scope outside of some of the roof and or one electrical panel and some minor renovations that occurred due to the water. And if we knew what they were, we would wholeheartedly remove those from this projected request. But we have yet to be provided that information, and I know we're looking forward to meeting to get it. In terms of the ongoing issues, it is serious. We have holes in the floor from many, many years in which carpeted has not been replaced or anything else being done to take care of the situation. We have done a very good job, we feel, in being able to ask for maintenance, but because maintenance in many cases has been deferred for so long, the additional maintenance that is required to fix what hadn't been fixed in a timely manner continues to erode the situation. So we're here asking for additional resources and assistance because we have not been provided with the scope of what's being done or a time frame, and the consideration that was previously being given was stated as such. We will make those repairs in the future as the budget allows, or we will consider a CIP time frame in the future. Again, that is not definitive. It does not tell us the scope of what needs to be done, and we have reworked our proposals many times in talking with both Arts and Culture and Parks and Rec. So we ask for your full consideration of this request today, and I'm here to take questions because we were told to bring and put together these binders of detailed information, and I would hope we would have had a little bit more conversation on what was asked of us to provide.
Okay. What we'll do is we'll take these, and everybody, if you could please read it. And then Cynthia, I take it that you'll be meeting with Ms. Bassett and go over what you're going to be doing and what you can, kind of the presentation you gave us, but maybe in more detail so they'll know.
Sure, Madam Chair, members of the subcommittee, yes, you are correct. We are working to schedule a meeting. This has certainly been moving very fast, so we've been doing the assessments, putting the information together, and just needed some additional time to meet with them to be able to go through everything in detail.
Okay, and if there are questions, we'll bring it up at the next meeting.
Thank you. We still ask to be considered fully once we receive the scope from the city outlining what they will do in time frame so we can properly adjust our proposals that you have in front of you. Thank you again for your time and your consideration of our request.
Okay.
Our next speaker is Billy Shields, followed by Carol Poor. Billy, are you on the line? You may proceed.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, I want to thank you very much for your service. I've been involved in every bond and bond election since 1980, and I know your task is a tough one. I speak today, first of all, I am a downtown resident, 310 West Almeria Road, own a business downtown. I serve as a co-chair of the Phoenix Community Alliance Central Planning and Development Committee. And so I'm going to advocate today on behalf of the membership of our Central City Planning Committee and the board of the Phoenix Community Alliance. Listen, I know the needs you're talking about. I've seen them. My wife and I were raised in South Phoenix, so the Grant Park and these names and these facilities, these buildings, it just breaks my heart that they've fallen into such disrepair. And so I really don't want to do anything that takes away from the importance of these for our community. But I've been directed, and I support fully the request that you fund fully Hance Park. It is a central jewel, or a true regional park. The funding that is being requested by staff would not include any additional bodies in terms of payroll. But I've seen just the beginning. I've seen the whole transition with Hance Park, where nobody wanted to go there. There were safety issues. There wasn't that much to do. And the work we've done with the Parks Conservancy, Hance Park Conservancy, the City of Phoenix, and our group, PCA, and working with the police department to make it safer, to build the brand new playground for children. I've already seen the families coming and the pride there, and just with what's been done, and it's just a small piece of what needs to be done. But this truly is an opportunity for all of us culturally, economically, civically, and I ask that you support the Hance Park funding.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Schills.
Our next speaker is Carol Poor, followed by Dan Penton. Carol, are you on the line?
Hello. Yes, I am. Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Carol Poor, and Madam Chair and Subcommittee, thank you for your service. I am a District 7 resident. I live directly on Hance Park, and I'm speaking today as an advocate for the completion of Hance Park. I served on the inaugural Margaret Hance Park Conservancy Board when it was first developed, and I've also been part of all of the various master plan visionary public meetings. I truly believe, and as a District 7 resident, a Phoenix native, that this is the longest and largest green belt in all of the city of Phoenix, and it's accessible and available to all, inclusive. We know that it's playing host to very many community events and international and national events, such as the Super Bowl and various concerts, but it's also available for us as residents. And I've been so proud of the extensive public-private partnership to raise money to renovate this park, including the Fiesta Bowl, putting a significant contribution there. And as you heard the prior speaker, Phoenix Community Alliance is a partner. So I am just coming before you today to advocate for finishing up the park. Let's get the job done. Let's complete this master plan, the visionary plan for this wonderful park. Let's create the Central Park of Phoenix that we can be proud of for many, many centuries ahead. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Dan Penton, followed by James Teeple. Dan, are you on the line?
Good morning, members of the subcommittee and Director. My name is Dan Penton. I'm a resident of Levine. I wanted to speak in support of the Levine Conveyance Channel funding. This park is, largely been neglected since it has begun several years ago. I ride this path frequently, and it's 5.5 miles long, which is fairly is quite lengthy. Yet you can't go a mile without it being, continuously a mile without it being interrupted by an unsafe crossing. There's no markings, there's no hawk crossings, and at one crossing along baseline, you literally have to wait almost 10 minutes until a vehicle approaches a traffic light in order for the crossing signal to allow you to proceed. That aside, there is always erosion from one side to the other side, because the ground is not landscaped, so it's constantly covered in dirt. There's large, retaining walls holding terrace, development in that are just bland and covered in graffiti. And there's such an opportunity here to create such a prime development space for, shaded walkability, entertainment, fitness. And there's no connectivity to the Maricopa Trail or the Sun Trail, and it's adjacent to the Gila River Indian community. There's an opportunity for some cultural investment in there too, making it a cultural showpiece for the city. Moving on to Cesar Chavez Park and the urban lake improvements, I strongly urge you to consider those funding as well. The lake is constantly overflowing its banks onto the pathways, leaving trash and slime deposits all over the place. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is James Teeple, followed by Elizabeth Bueno. James, are you on the line?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, you may proceed.
Oh, thank you. Yes, good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the subcommittee. Thank you once again for your service and for your time here. I'd like to, I live adjacent to Hans Park. I'm on the board of the Roosevelt Action Association, and in that capacity, I also serve on the Hans Park Conservancy. And I'd just like to say that please to request that the subcommittee, there is some talk of Hans Park having some private partners, as was evidenced with the Fiesta Bowl partners. But what is really needed with Hans Park, I believe, can only really come from the city, and that's infrastructure improvements to the Central Avenue Bridge, which is really in a pretty bad shape. And if that can be fixed, then we can really activate the eastern portion of the park, as well as the under the bridge, which would probably be an ideal location, let's say, for the downtown farmers market. And also living on Culver Street, I do see, the dog park area really needs some safety lighting and things like that. And those are really critical infrastructure issues that I believe can really only come from the city and from the public sector. So I'd just like you to keep that in mind when you do consider the Hans Park program. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Elizabeth Bueno, followed by Robert Miller. Elizabeth, are you on the line?
Hello and good afternoon. My name is Lisbeth Bueno, and I have been a resident of the Maryville community for most of my life. I'm calling to support the allocation of the $12.3 million for the Parks and Recreation Estrella Civic Space. The 93 acres have been promised to the community since 2004, yet no action has been taken by the city since then. Estrella continues to grow, but it is often left behind regarding community amenities. We need a regional space where all can come, play, and participate in the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bueno.
Our next speaker is Robert Miller, followed by Christine Laws. Robert, are you on the line?
Good afternoon, I am. Thank you very much. Madam Chair and other subcommittee members, thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk to you today. As you heard, my name is Bob Miller. I'm the Vice Chair of the Science Center Board. I've had the honor of serving on the board and the executive committee for almost approaching 30 years now. I'm actually a practicing lawyer, and I do it only because, having lived here for now 32 years, I love the city of Phoenix and I love the Science Center. So I'm here today on behalf of our 46 board members, our partners in education, tourism, and others in the city of Phoenix, along with the hundreds of thousands who've engaged in the project every year. And we humbly request that you support the Science Center's approximately $6.9 million proposal to be included in the prioritized proposal project list for the bond offering. To get to the fine point, because it's been really helpful for me to listen to all the other presentations, if it really comes down to what we would like you to hear, is we respectfully believe that now is the time for this reinvestment in the building and the facilities to be able to serve Phoenicians far in the future. The idea for us is that not so much that it's an expansion, but it's an upgrade of a 25-year-old facility, its galleries, its features, its systems, and its amenities. And really, if I'm just speaking personally on that point, having gone downtown for 3 decades of my career and having drove past that building every year over and over and over again, and now having such an intimate relationship with the Science Center and those that are working to make it better and to get it in the post-COVID environment going in the right way, it is just sorely in need of an upgrade. And I can't stress how important we view that to be for the Science Center and for the city of Phoenix. I'll close with just, I think that's my time, but thank you very much. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
All right, thank you, sir.
Our next speaker is Christine Laws, followed by Lisa Perez. Christine, are you on the line? Christine, you may proceed. We can't hear you, Christine. Please unmute or adjust your speaker if you can. Okay, we are not hearing you. We'll come back to you if we can get you on the line. Our next speaker is Lisa Perez, are you on the line?
I am.
Okay, please proceed.
Thank you. Chair Wilcox and members of the subcommittee, thank you for the opportunity to address you today and speak about the proposed Estrella Civic Space. I am pleased to see that the branch library at Estrella Civic Space was ranked #1 in the ranking exercises of the Neighborhood and City Services Subcommittee last Friday. While I understand that this was just a first step in the greater Estrella Civic Space, I am grateful for the recognition of the importance of this project to our community and to the city. When I moved to this area in 2013, one of the first issues I heard about was this vacant land between 91st Avenue and 99th Avenue that was promised to be a regional park. For more than 20 years, I believe, this park has been on the books with no way to fund it, so it has sat empty and underutilized. For those of you that are not familiar with our area, it is fair to say that we are in many ways an underserved community, but are not looked upon in that way. We do not have city buildings or direct city services such as a library or community center. We have very little commercial and retail services, and we have very limited transit services. Combine that with our very large and ever-growing every day residential community, and this area is screaming for the need for more amenities. A regional park with its open space, potential for events and community gatherings would be a quality of life game changer for all residents of this community. If anybody would like to come down and take a tour to get a better understanding of this area, I'd be happy to host you. But since that, I'll end by saying thank you for your time and the opportunity to speak with you, and I urge for your serious consideration of the Estrella Civic Space. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Linda Abeg, followed by Lisa Sun. Linda, are you on the line?
I am.
Please proceed.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the subcommittee. I appreciate the time. I live in Levine. I'm the vice chair of the Levine Village Planning Committee. I've been working for over 6 years as part of that committee for responsible and balanced development in our area. The Levine Area Conveyance Channel is something that would fit this bond perfectly, extending its life, increasing its usability, and something that stretches throughout Levine for many people to be able to benefit from, both in walkability, which we're going for in Phoenix, as well as recreation and healthy living. There was a lot of discussion today about the equity in where these projects are being distributed, and I'd encourage you to look at a map of where parks are currently developed, because while the South may be overrepresented in some view during this bond process, it has been underrepresented woefully for years. We just fought to get parks in Levine because we hadn't had any in over a decade. Added in during when the recession hit in 2008, the infrastructure stopped being built. Estrella Village has gone through the same thing, where we don't have our initial infrastructure and amenities that are part of the general plan for Phoenix. So this is an area that is far behind in its development. And if we are given more of the bond funds for the South area of Phoenix, it's just to try and get us caught up to the rest of Phoenix. It's not getting us above where other people are. So please consider updating this great path that we have in Levine, one of the few places where we can ride bikes and walk, and hopefully get some safe crossings. As Mr. Penton mentioned, we have an unmarked crosswalk right next to a high school where we're having kids. Had a kid get hit by a car last year. We just really need some safe crossings and safe places in our community. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Lisa Sun, followed by Larry Lazarus in Upper Council Chambers. Lisa, are you on the line?
Yes. Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the subcommittee. My name is Lisa Sun, and I'm the representative-elect for Legislative District 22, and I'm also a resident of the Estrella Village community. I'm calling today to support the allocation of the $12.3 million for the 93 acres park and recreation Estrella Civic Space. As stated before, Estrella continues to grow, but is left behind regarding community amenities. Such amenities can potentially be used as a place to organize for wellness activities around mental health issues, particularly positive and adverse childhood experiences, acronym PACE, P-A-C-E, which affects over 80% of the human population in general. Such amenities goes beyond the benefits of the community, but provides the sustainability for the whole human health and future prosperity of the community. Many healthcare organizations have budgets for such outreach programs in communities like ours, and what better space than the Australia Civic Space, where we can utilize, collaborate, and share resources for the betterment of our community. We need a regional space where we can all come together to play, participate, and thrive. Thank you.
We may have Christine Laws back online. Christine, are you available? We are aware that you're there, but we still cannot hear you.
Do we know what topic she was calling on?
Okay, we're going to continue, Christine. Our next speaker in upper council chambers is Larry Lazarus, followed by Rebecca Pereira.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, I'm going to be brief. I know there's a lot of people here on Hance Park, so, but I am the co-chair of the Phoenix Community Alliance Hance Park Committee, charged with raising literally millions of dollars from the private sector in order to make this park happen. It's truly a private-public partnership. We are doing this with the city. When fully realized, this park will be a destination both appealing to the tourists as well as local neighbors. It will be a destination that integrates the surrounding neighbors with all of the cultural institutions that exist around the park. With quick access to the park, being on the transit, it will promote health and wellness not only to the people surrounding it, but from the public gatherings and equitable access for people throughout Arizona, through all walks of life, because they will have that access. Not only will it be great for the neighborhood, but it's going to be an economic driver for decades to come. It will be a public amenity for thousands of families, and it will be in every major city in this country does have a downtown iconic park. This will put us in the same category as all of those other major cities. We then would propose that we have the opportunity to bring the kinds of major events as well as the neighborhood access, such as Super Bowl, Final Four, and all of those fairs and opportunities that we're going to have here in Phoenix. And that's why I'm speaking on behalf of it. Incidentally, just as an aside, I was on the bond committee under Margaret T. Hance. So I've been around for a little while.
Thank you, Mr. Lazarus.
Our next speaker is Rebecca Pereira, followed by Jason Dofikas.
Thank you. My name is Rebecca Pereira, and I live in Laveen. I'm here in support of funding for parks in Laveen, especially the $4.9 million in proposed funding for the Laveen Area Conveyance Channel. Laveen also has one undeveloped park in the Rogers Ranch community, and our regional park, Cesar Chavez, is in desperate need of urban lake repairs. I have sent the committee a virtual tour of the LACC, and I hope you've got a chance to see it. The committee is being asked to consider a lot of important projects today. I want to share with you why I think the Laveen parks are an important thing to consider. First, unlike a lot of parks you're looking at, Laveen does not have private funding or grant funding to improve the LACC. Green spaces in Laveen and in the West, including Estrella of the city, have historically been underfunded and underserved. Equal distribution of funding is not the same as equitable distribution of funding. This project for the LACC is for deferred maintenance. It has little or no ongoing operating costs. Nearly 70% of Laveen residents live in a census tract that is adjacent to the LACC. So this is literally the backbone of the community where they can walk to retail. It's connecting it'll soon be connecting 4 schools. It connects to multiple parks. The park improvements complement other Go Bond projects, including Vision Zero and the Safety Action Plan, T20 mobility improvements, but I would add that Laveen doesn't have any current studied areas in proposed funding for that traffic safety and mobility improvement plan. It's also important to heat mitigation, shade, and air quality. In my neighborhood, I live right behind the LACC, and the irrigation has been broken for years. So there's been erosion, and the erosion causes dust. Every time there's a monsoon, wind just blows through the Estrella corridor, and it just kicks up dust, causing a lot of asthma and potentially other issues in breathing. Just please consider adding this to your priority list. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Jason Dovikas, followed by Cindy Gahn.
Nice job on the last name. Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the subcommittee. My name is Jason Dovikas, and I am the principal at Sullivan Elementary School, located in Phoenix City Council District 7. I am here today in support of one of the state's key educational partners, the Arizona Science Center. I'm sure many of you have heard about the teacher shortage our state has been experiencing for many years, which was only worsened by COVID. One specific challenge we have is a great need for teachers who can effectively teach math and science. Thankfully, Arizona Science Center has designed programs that help build the competence and confidence of our teachers, giving them the tools they need to inspire students in STEM subjects and bringing engaging, hands-on curricula and lessons to the classroom. And we know that improved science literacy among teachers translates to increased student engagement with and interest in science. This increased engagement leads to increased enrollment in STEM-focused college majors and post-secondary programs, which ultimately leads to a stronger Arizona. Now it's our turn to make sure they can continue to offer support to teachers and educators across the state. I've seen firsthand how much the STEM teaching sessions at Arizona Science Center benefit educators, and hope we take this opportunity to ensure more teachers, schools, and students can benefit from their learning support. I humbly request your support of the Arizona Science Center's $6.8 million proposal be included in the prioritized proposed project list for the Parks and Recreation 2023 GO Bond proposal. To the Madam Chairwoman and the members of the subcommittee, thank you for your time and dedication throughout the 2023 GO Bond process. Thank you for your continued efforts in making the city of Phoenix the best it can be. And finally, thank you for your consideration of Arizona Science Center's request.
Our next speaker is Cindy Gahn, followed by Katina Caller.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the subcommittee. You've heard from a number of people regarding funding for Margaret T. Hance Park, and I come here speaking before you as Senior Director of Phoenix Community Alliance, who is raising the private funds to help revitalize that park, and I speak on behalf of our members and our Board of Directors. And I'd just like you to think about some of the cities, if you've had an opportunity to travel around the United States and enjoyed so much of what the city has to offer. If you've been fortunate enough to be able to go someplace like New York City and visit Central Park, or Chicago and visit Millennium Park, those parks create unique experiences for those cities, and they create an indelible memory, and that's what we're asking for funding for Hance Park for. Hance Park is the equivalent of our Central Park and Millennium Park. And Hance Park is not just a neighborhood park, but it also is a regional park, and by that I mean folks from across the city and this metropolitan area can reach Hance Park. We have visitors who will be coming from across the state and country, and even from across the world, around the world, to attend our park and really enjoy what we have to offer there because of the amenities that exist and will exist, and the festivals that will be able to attract them, as well as large mega events. So we ask that you really consider the full funding of $17.8 million as a prioritized project for Margaret T. Hance Park. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Katina Caller, followed by Tim Sprague.
Hello, Madam Chair, members of the subcommittee. Thank you so much for your service today. You have many projects to delve into, and I am here, yes, to advocate on behalf of Hance Park, but you've heard many facets and areas of advocacy around Hance Park. I'm going to try to add a couple more items for you to consider as you review this project. The city already has a very direct and intimate relationship with this project. Without the city's involvement, this park would not exist. We would be talking about the most densely populated area of the city of Phoenix around a freeway. We'd be talking about noise walls. We'd be talking about historic preservation issues. Because of the city of Phoenix's support of this park in past years, it exists. It is a gathering space not just for the surrounding neighborhood, but for the city of Phoenix population. Currently, in front of you, you have the idea of supporting a commitment to a plan. This is not just an add-on element of a park. This isn't something new that was devised because everyone knew there was a bond issue being discussed. This is a commitment by the city of Phoenix to support the redevelopment of a park so it can better serve one of the most highly densely populated areas of the city. The city itself, through its many departments, has committed to the central Phoenix area through transportation, through planning and development, and yes, through parks. We're talking about people who are moving to the center city without backyards. We have balconies. We have small studio spaces. Every level of economic demographic is in this densely populated area, not with acreage, not with horse properties. This is the place we go. This is where we recreate. This is where we play. This is where we connect. This is where we build a culture. And we truly, truly appreciate your considering support of this project for the full $17 million. Thank you very much.
Our next speaker is Tim Sprague, followed by Leah Frigulia.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, I again thank you for your service. My name is Tim Sprague. I serve as co-chair with Larry Lazarus on the Phoenix Community Alliance committee that's helping raise millions of dollars to supplement what the city's doing with Hance Park. It's very ironic that in 1988 there was a proposal to have an overpass to connect I-10 literally at the place where Hance Park is. It was an overpass that was going to separate the community. It's ironic that now Hance Park, because of Margaret T. Hance's work, was depressed where I-10 connects, and we have 32.5 acres in the middle of our city. It's one of the best things that has brought together the center of our city than we could say in the last 35, 40 years. What's before you for the bond issue is to talk about a project that deals with the Central Avenue Bridge, which is the connector between the east and west side of the park, to make it safer and to make it really accessible to people in the valley. Hance Park is a jewel. It is our central park. Every great city has a good urban park, has a great urban park, and Hance Park has the ability and is evolving to that for us. I hope you consider this. Thanks.
Our next speaker is Leah Frigulia, followed by Monet Lewis.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Subcommittee. And I hate to do this, but I'm also here on behalf of Hance Park. I'm wearing actually 3 hats, though, so hopefully giving a little bit different light. I'm the head of school and CEO for Arizona School for the Arts, a 5th through 12th grade public charter school about a half a block from the park, and that park has been our play area, the community convening space, and actually the place where our cross-country team runs as well, so central to a school. I'm also representing the Hance Park Conservancy as both one of the founding members, or the original members, but also as the current president of the Hance Park Conservancy. And finally, I'm a resident of the Roosevelt neighborhood, so a personal user on a daily basis of the park. I have a 30-year relationship with that park, and I've seen it transform over the years. It's increasingly becoming an important amenity in our city. Not just for the locals, as many have said, but for the residents from across the city, from across the metro area, and also nationally for visitors coming to Phoenix. It's a place where our community actually convenes for local festivals. Phoenix Center for the Arts puts on the Phoenix Festival of the Arts every year. Hance Park Conservancy, Noche en Blanco every October, but also for a national audience, such as the Super Bowl and nationally known concerts. So Hance Park, I guess I'm saying, is everybody's park. One of the benefits of Hance Park being selected as one of the priorities for this bond is that we already have a plan, as Katrina said, a master plan that has been reviewed by the public, supported, and approved and adopted. The first elements are already underway because of the public-private partnerships that we have with the City of Phoenix, and this $17 million investment would complete the first part of that design. It would create visibility, safety, and tangible progress would not only support the current work, but also be an attraction for future investment on the private sector. Thank you for the consideration for this full amount for Hance Park.
Our next speaker is Monet Lewis.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and the members of the subcommittee. Thank you for your service and your time for allowing me to speak with you today. My name is Monet Lewis, and I am affiliated with Cowtown Skate nonprofit organization. I'm here today in support of the Solano Skate Park project that was proposed last meeting, for which you have been provided an information packet for. Looks like this. So, Arizona ranks in the top 5 states for children impacted by adverse childhood experiences, or ACEs. As it turns out, skateboarding can provide effective mitigation of ACEs in several ways. Research has found that skateboarding, due to its social aspects and high sensory stimuli, can help to create regulation in the lower domains of the brain, which in turn affects positive changes within the higher regions of the brain, enabling development that can be beneficial for people suffering from dysregulation due to trauma and prolonged stress. A first-of-its-kind study of skateboarding culture found that skateboarding improves mental health, fosters community, and encourages diversity and resilience, according to the University of Southern California. According to that study, skateboarding and skate parks facilitate a sense of community among skaters, as skateboarders reported the value of connecting with people who share similar passions in skate parks. Another study conducted by Instinct Laboratory and Flow Skate Park has shown that individuals who partake in skating stated they do so to reduce boredom, provide them with a healthy outlet of escapism, helps them to build their confidence, and use skateboarding as a coping mechanism for their emotions. Solano District residents were surveyed for the St. Luke's Health Initiatives back in 2013, and I don't think much has changed. The health assessment report revealed that 60% of Solano District families earn less than twice the federal poverty level for a family of 4. Residents surveyed recognized Solano Park as an asset, even though they agreed it could be improved. Workshop participants suggested fencing, shade trees, more playground options, a skate park, or splash pad. Cowtown Skate is grateful for the opportunity to partner with the City of Phoenix to deliver the Solano Skate Park, and are asking on behalf of a neighborhood in need for the city to allocate the funding necessary to see the project through. Thank you very much for your time and consideration today.
We're going to try Christine Laws one last time. Christine, are you available? We still are unable to hear you, but we reflect that you are online. Okay, Madam Chair, that was our last speaker.
Madam Chair, can you get your microphone on, please?
Ms. Mosk? Okay. Cynthia, I do know on the skate, I want to thank everybody for coming down. I know it's the middle of the afternoon, and projects are very, with a lot of passion in your support. I do just want to put for the record that I was on the council that voted for the Mayor Hance Park many, many years ago, and that's always been one of the highlights when I look back on my career, because when we opened that, we realized that we would not be dividing our city. That's what's happened. It's just joined the city. So thank you all for your advocacy. We have a report from Cynthia on the skateboarding that we heard, but I just wanted to put on the record that there is right now a phase 1 of the skateboarding plan that's going into place. Is that correct, Cynthia?
Madam Chair, members of the subcommittee, yes, I think what was last discussed when we met at the last subcommittee meeting was that I shared information about phase 1 is in progress currently. The design work has been completed, and we expect construction to be beginning soon. It is being designed in a way that has room to have a phase 2, but we've not identified funding for phase 2. We're focusing on phase 1, and so the plan was always to finish that first before we proceed. Costs have gone up quite a bit, and so according to our most recent estimates, that phase 2 is closer to $750,000 right now.
Okay, thank you. I also think that that is a very, very good project. Okay, let me go ahead. We're going to go over now project ranking methods, but I just would like to say that we had a series of projects brought forward by Parks, and that has been reduced down so that we could have a little bit more flexibility. Are you all in agreement with the reductions? Is everybody okay with that? Yes, Elizabeth?
Again, just going back to the equitable part, that if we can make sure that if we're going to cut across the board, right? And I appreciate the comments by the folks who spoke, but again, like, we need to make sure that everybody, that all Phoenicians feel that this is their bond as well. And while I understand that there is historic disinvestment, we need to make sure that everybody across the board in this one feels that they have something at stake. I don't know if this is the right time. I appreciate staff's work a lot, right? Being on the other side, like, you get calls and things, but often one of the things I hear and see is that we talk different, right? Like, we speak different. Like, for example, talking about the Levine area conveyance channel, right, to a normal non-city person, that, you're like, what is that? Or when we're talking about the South Mountain Erosion Project, and I'm just also weary that on the ballot, if we're asking folks to vote for the South Mountain Erosion Project, it's different than asking them to beautify South Mountain Road, right? It's different than asking them to beautify the Levine channel that connects the community, right? So if we could be a little more conscientious of the way that we're presenting this to the public, I think that that is something that should be addressed as well. So.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Cynthia, so I guess the question as we review these, I think we're in major agreement on the board. Will they be brought before us with the lesser amounts then?
So, Madam Chair, members of the subcommittee, what I'd recommend doing is having us turn it over to Chris Fazio, who will give more information that might be helpful on how you're going to rank projects and what next steps are. Ultimately, my understanding is we presented you with 13 projects, so those would be the projects that you would have to act on to say if you agree those should be on, and you'd have to agree that you would like to scale one or all of those projects back that we proposed today, and then also determine if the additional projects that were discussed previously, like Esteban, the bathhouse, and then the pot, are all things, that are going to be added in as your final prioritized list. I think what Chris will talk to you about is the intent is to have that list finalized of your priority projects so that you can then use the survey tool to rank them. But I'll go ahead and turn it over to Chris if you're okay with that.
Okay, and Chris, the question I have is, we put a lot of thought so far into everything that we want to put forward as extra things. I have not heard, and I was going to ask if there's any project that anybody wants to take off the table. So if we move forward with the 13 projects and the 3 that we had asked to move forward for ranking, are they going to be considered at the level that Cynthia gave us that could free up some money, or will it be considered at the first level?
Madam Chair, committee members, that would be a question we would be asking the committee. So the committee doesn't today need to decide on what the funding level is, but what we would ask for guidance on is what scope is the committee evaluating? And as I'll talk about in a moment, one of the questions will be, once we've decided on what the survey scope represents, whether committee members believe that scope is too low, too high, about right, or not appropriate. So for example, if the South Mountain roadway improvements were to be evaluated at a reduced scope, committee members could still indicate they believe a higher amount of funding is needed, and then during your next meeting, deliberate on what the right funding level is for that project.
Okay, so we can take into consideration what Cynthia said when we're doing our surveys, and when we come back, we will discuss the funding source or the funding amount.
That's right.
Okay.
We would need to know today what funding level you're evaluating the project at in your survey responses, so that everyone's starting from a common vocabulary on what a project represents, but then during the next meeting could deliberate on whether that really is the right scope or not.
Well, see, that's what I was getting at. Maybe I just not clear. Cynthia presented, because we asked at the last meeting, everybody was in agreement, that they try to find money by cutting some of the projects. She did cut some of the projects. So should we take just discussion if we're in agreement with that?
Madam Chair, so once we get to the point of action today,
okay.
That's something we would want clarified in the motion. Is that list of projects inclusive of those scope cuts that were discussed today?
Okay, then go ahead, Chris.
Madam Chair, that's actually my question, Chris. If the survey, and if that's what you're going to get at right now, but does the survey include the original 13 projects and the 3 new ones, and does it include the original scope, like how much it was originally, and then the second piece? So or is that direction that you're going to need from us?
Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair, that's exactly right. That's direction we would be looking for today.
We just keep asking you all the questions. Sorry.
Now we'll let you talk.
Madam Chair, committee members, so to reiterate some of what was discussed during the last meeting and has been discussed in the past, the executive committee's charge to the subcommittee is to determine the highest priority items for this bond program that cannot reasonably be deferred. This is a 4-step process, at least in terms of decision points. One is determining the list of projects that the committee wishes to evaluate, the total universe of projects to be considered. To prioritize the evaluated projects, in other words, determine their relative priority ranks. To recommend funding amounts for each project, and to identify which projects the subcommittee does not wish to move forward to the executive committee. There only being 4 meetings to complete this work, the subcommittee would need to finalize the list of projects to be evaluated no later than the end of this meeting. Once the total population of projects is settled, the subcommittee can then work through relative priorities and costs. There isn't a prescribed method for this. What staff has proposed as a way of facilitating that discussion is an online survey completed individually by subcommittee members. This would, at the subcommittee's direction, this would occur between this meeting and the next meeting. This would look like a web-based survey. Survey results would be presented in aggregate at the next subcommittee meeting. So staff would be informing the committee on essentially average ranks by committee member for the project. This would only be a starting point for the subcommittee's discussion. So next meeting's agenda would include an opportunity for the final action on that list of projects. We would send you each a link to the survey. The link would be completed only by subcommittee members. And just to give you a sample of what that looks like, we coincidentally completed some sample screenshots that every subcommittee's looked at, and those sample screenshots are parks projects. So first we would be asking for names and email addresses. This is simply to confirm that it's a subcommittee member who's responding to the survey, and so that we can follow up with you if needed. We wouldn't intend to be presenting individual ranks, although members should be aware that responses to the survey would be public record. We'd be asking members to rank order the projects in order of priority. So you're seeing a handful of project examples here. The list that would be populated in your survey is the list that the subcommittee directs today. We'd be ordering these alphabetically initially. Each committee member would be reordering the list into their recommended priority order. This is a simple click and drag exercise. The survey tool automatically populates the rank of projects as you click and drag them. We'd ask members to identify any projects where they believe funding levels need to be higher than what is identified. Commensurately, any projects where members believe less funding should be allocated for a project. And finally, projects where members believe the project should not be moved forward to the executive committee.
Chris, let me ask a question. Will it have the funding on it?
Madam Chair, to date, we haven't done that. We've let that be part of the discussion in the following meeting. In the case of what this subcommittee is contemplating, if, for example, the committee were to decide they wanted to evaluate a project as if its scope were reduced, we would make a note in the survey that the assumption is it's the reduced scope.
Okay, so if we decide to go with Cynthia's report where she was able to reduce, then that would be what was on the survey.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. And let me ask another question. We did have a couple of things that have come up that are not in our scope, either as the 13 projects or the 3 that we talked about. So that would come into discussion in the 4th meeting if we wanted to add any of those projects.
Madam Chair, members of the subcommittee, no, staff would ask that if the committee wishes to include them as part of the survey tool and evaluation, to take that vote today and say we'd like to include whatever those projects are that the committee wants, and then that will be included in the survey tool as well. So that will help with that discussion on that 4th meeting.
Okay, thank you. Okay, and if we have questions, we call staff.
That's right, Madam Chair. The survey tool is pretty intuitive, but certainly staff would be trained on how to assist with that if needed, or if a committee member wished to come to City Hall, whatever is needed to work through any issues.
Okay. Everybody understand? Okay, I think the decision that we have to make, Cynthia presented at our request that she downsize a few of the projects to give us flexibility in considering everything we were looking at, the 3 extra. So is everybody okay with using the downsize funding in the survey?
Madam Chair, I just want clarification on the South Mountain roadway safety. So are we, and I guess I'm trying to look into a crystal ball, are we certain that we'll be able to find funding if we do decide to go with the lower scope of work, that we'll be able to find funding? Because it just, if we're going to do 8 miles of road and then just the other one, there's still,
Sure.
It's a whole road.
Yeah, Madam Chair, members of the subcommittee, it's a great question. So we can never 100% say yes, but we are very fortunate with having access to Phoenix Parks and Preserve Initiative funds. We do program those out in our 5-year CIP plan. We rearrange based on other priorities constantly. That would certainly be our goal. We just can't 100% with certainty say yes because we don't know what other priorities may come up, between now and then, but that would certainly be our goal. And we feel it's something that we could do. I just couldn't say it 100%.
Okay, as long as the city has alternatives, right, and other buckets that we could go to for that, because it's an important project, definitely. Like I got married at the top of South Mountain, so it's important to be able to get back up there every year, So it's on a personal one, like I would like the road to be safe and done. So I just want to confirm, but thank you.
Okay, and Cynthia, I took it for granted that the ones that you did, you really researched, that made sure that there was possible funding, not guaranteed, but possible.
Yes, Madam Chair, members of the subcommittee, each of the 4 projects, the South Mountain reduction of scope, Washington Activity Center, South Mountain, and Telephone Pioneers are all projects that would qualify for Phoenix Parks and Preserve Initiative funding.
Okay.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, if I could, just make sure that, I think the first question is, does the committee wish to use the survey tool? And just make sure that everyone is in agreement with that.
Okay.
And then we can start working on what's your baseline list, which is getting the question you're asking right now.
Is everybody okay with the survey? Okay. I have gotten word that other committees have used it, and it's come out pretty good for them. So, okay. And that gives us a real good benchmark, I think. So, all right, so we're okay with the tool. And now the second question is, do we want to go ahead and incorporate Cynthia's figures that would give us more flexibility in evaluation? And is everybody okay with that? Reduced?
Madam Chair, I just have a question. The reduced list that Ms. Aguilar came up with I think it was $7.4 million in savings, and the additions that we were looking at is 7.1. So there's a little bit more savings than what we had come up with costs. So are we rolling that extra money into some other projects, the flexible
knowing
funds,
that it's
or what?
there, I did want to put that second question. Do we raise the discretionary funds to 1.5 instead of
The extra
500?
money would go into that?
It would go into that.
Okay.
And we would probably add a little bit, so.
Okay, I just want to make sure we're not giving up a penny of what we've been told
I
to
know,
allocate.
I know. So that extra would be used, and then if everybody's okay with raising the discretion, we would use that in the tool. It would not say 500, it would say 1.5. Is that okay? All right, so we're going to use the tool. We're going to use the reduced figures on the projects that Cynthia mentioned, and we're going to evaluate the 13 plus the 3 that we discussed. And at this time, I guess the question, we've had the science come before us, and we've had the arts, and we've had the skate town come before us as the major projects. One of the things that I just want to comment on the science, I love the Science Center. I've used it many times and taken a lot of grandkids there, along with other children. But one of the things that we evaluated in the contract was what are the duties? And the city has fulfilled their duties, and the Science Center comes before us with expansion. In my mind, we should leave that to the executive and the city council to decide if they want the expansion. There isn't, I think, enough money in our Parks and Rec to add that, and if they were not complying with the contract as a city, it'd be a different story. But I think when we read the contract, they've done everything that is in compliance, and it's a contract that's long-term. So if anybody has different thoughts, you know, we, at this time, would not include it, but direct that it would be up to the executive or the city council. Agreed? Okay. On the arts, again, this is one that came rather late, and there's different committees looking at it. I know that the city has gone to a lot of work to find out what could we do, and there's a lot that's going to be done with other monies besides the bond money. And it's really to make it safe and secure as much as they can. But there's also a contract, $1 rent, 50% of utilities, and the city is maintaining their portion of their contract. So this again falls in the category that it would really be up to the council almost if they wanted to invest in it. And if anybody wants to put it in, we can, but are we in agreement? Okay. And on the skate, we do have phase 1 being developed. We're not saying that we wouldn't look at phase 2, but phase 1 is going to take an amount of time. So by the time that we look at another bond, we maybe could include phase 2 in it. Is that correct, Cynthia?
Madam Chair, members of the subcommittee, it's certainly something we would either look for more 3PI funds in the future to build that second phase, or we could certainly decide to move it forward in a future bond process.
Okay, so we could put it in the second category and ask that it be highlighted after the first phase is done.
Yes, in the terms of this process, we wouldn't need to add it anywhere at this point, but it's something that's already on our radar because, again, we designed it in a way to have a phase 2 in the future.
Okay.
Madam Chair, I have a follow-up question on the Estrella Civic Center or Civic Space and the Levine's Conveyance Channel. Are impact fees available for those? Because those areas are still growing, right? Like we still have new construction coming, so is that something that we can look at?
Madam Chair, members of the subcommittee, that's great. That's a great question. There are some impact fees in that POC, and there will be more. It continues to accrue. And so that's why this request is for the design and construction of 1/3. It's a large park, so between we need this to get that part going. And then I would say any future impact fees in that area could help make sure that phase 2 or completion of that park happens.
Okay, thank you, Cynthia. Appreciate it.
And the Levine Conveyance Channel, the same thing.
And the Levine Conveyance Channel is eligible. I actually need to verify, but it should be, and I say that because it's intended to be a flood control basin, if you will, right? And it's a little disjointed as additional development has occurred in the Levine area. It has impacted our irrigation system in different ways. Some of the things you heard about today have to do with street transportation type of things like crosswalks and hawks. And so that is something we're already making some repairs along the channel. It is a very long linear channel, and so we're starting in the areas that need it the most now. But it was identified as a future capital project because we believe there is certainly a need for more amenities along that Levine area conveyance channel in the future.
Okay, and
Madam Chair, members of the subcommittee, if I could add a little bit more to the impact fee discussion, where you're talking about new capital facilities for parks and recreation, impact fees can be used. Where you're talking about maintenance issues like principally, as I understand it, the Levine Conveyance Channel, that's not impact fee monies that can be used for that. Yeah. So I just want to clarify that. And there are a number of legal restrictions upon what the city can charge with impact fees that necessitate for almost all of these types of larger improvements that there's some bond funding or other funding going to it as well. It's not something that the city can just charge to new development.
Thank you, Alan, for your expert clarification.
I don't even know why I tried that one. I know.
And I would highly recommend that we go back to the county because we created the Levine Conveyance Channel a long time ago. And we did fund it, but and the city had always said they put a linear park there. But in this instance, it has eroded a lot, so maybe they could help improve that quite a bit. So, or we can ask Steve Gallardo and get him to do it. Okay, so the motion then that we would probably put forward is a motion to accept the tool that we're going to use the new figures that Cynthia has given us on reductions, add in $1 million to the discretionary.
So,
to be
I'm sorry,
yes.
Madam Chair, could we just break these out into a few separate ones? I think it'll be easier for everyone to make sure that we, at least certainly from staff's perspective, that we have it all.
Alan, we want to give you a full package. You want to break them out, or is everybody okay with one?
Let's break them out.
Okay. First one, do we use a survey? Can I get a motion? Yes.
I move that we use the survey tool to rank order the priorities.
I second.
Okay, we have first and second. All those in accord, say aye.
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 Any nays? Okay, so survey tool. Next one is using the new figures that Cynthia has given us on the reductions.
Madam Chair, members of the subcommittee, and I apologize since I'm the new kid here, I'm going to ask the dumb questions. That prioritized project list is your base that Parks and Recreation put forward originally in your packet, except for the reductions that Ms. Aguilar presented. Is that correct?
I believe, I didn't hear anybody wanting to take any out. So is there any discussion on a project that you would like to remove from the Parks and Recreation original list? No, so that would be the original list, okay? Plus, I think we could combine it, the original list plus the three that we were looking at, okay?
And Madam Chair, members of the subcommittee, so we're saying the original 13 projects plus the 3 additional ones that were originally brought forward, which would be the Recreation Center at Esteban Park. It would be renovations to the historic Grant Park bathhouse into a recreation space. And then it would be the minor capital improvements project or fund that would allow neighborhoods to apply for new amenities or enhanced amenities within their parks. So it's the 13 projects plus those 3. And what I heard you say earlier is that that minor capital improvement pot would be increased from the original recommended $500,000 to $1.5 million.
Yes, ma'am. Mm-hmm. Okay, is that okay?
Try to capture this. Madam Chairwoman, I move that we keep the original 13 projects with the reductions proposed by city staff and add to the projects the Esteban project, the Grant Park project, and the capital improvement project at $1.5 million.
I second.
Okay, we have motion and second, and we're not voting on the projects yet. We're just voting on the survey questionnaire, what it will contain. So, okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, thank you. All right, do you need anything else? Chris, do you need anything else?
No, Madam Chair, we'll put that survey together and distribute it to committee members within the next day or two. So if you monitor your emails, you'll receive a email from staff with that survey link.
Okay, and our next meeting is?
Look. On the 4th?
3rd? I don't know.
30th? Oh, I'm so far behind.
I believe it is October 3rd.
Oh, the 3rd. I
Okay,
was close.
so by, is there a time limit to do those surveys? Do you want them within a week or?
Madam Chair, we'll make sure we look at the schedule and we'll back up that response date to ensure that the results of the survey can be distributed in the agenda packet so members of the public can see in advance of the meeting what those initial responses looked like. It will be a couple of days.
Yeah, if you send us the link, why don't you give us a proposed date to get it back?
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Cynthia, I am a very visual person, as I hope a lot of the colleagues up here are. So is there a way that you just get us like a slide with the new costs of the 13 original projects plus the 3 so that we know how much we're moving forward? Because I think we've just raised our 1.9, but I'm also not a math teacher, so.
Madam Chair, members of the subcommittee, I was trying to do some quick
Yes.
math too. So I actually don't think you're going above, but we will get you that information
Thank you.
in an email. And then when you receive the surveys, it'll also include the dollar amount next to the project, I
Okay,
believe.
wonderful.
Chris.
Thank you.
They'll write it and put the dollar amount, so, okay.
Perfect.
Okay.
And Madam Chair, members of the
Yes.
subcommittee and the public, this survey, as Chris said, will just present a basis for you guys to start the discussion. And so that the money that is associated with that, if you're slightly over, under, you'll be able to make all of those adjustments,
changes.
reprioritize. All that discussion will happen in public at the next meeting. The survey tool just is a great place to start the discussion with what everyone on the committee agrees to, thinking is good, and what they don't really, and then you can have that discussion in that middle part of things where we know it's going to be some tough choices that you have to make, and so we want you to have as much time as possible to kind of focus in on those areas.
Okay. Well, I want to say thank you for the presentation. I think the survey has worked well with other committees, so we'll look forward to doing it, and I urge everybody to keep it within the time frame that you ask us to. Just one other thing, and the committee has worked very hard. Everybody's been really good at attendance, and I'd like to thank you all. We have one more meeting, and that's our big one. But I would like to perhaps send, not a resolution, but maybe just comment, if you're all in agreement, that the needs are very, very great out there. And we see those not in only our committee, but in every committee we hear about. So we urge as a committee that the council, we have no authority to do it, but the council really look at perhaps raising the bond. If we did it to 600 or 750 or even higher, I think we could accommodate a lot more for the public. And I know that's a city council decision, but just being here and seeing the needs, it'd be great if we could raise it. So, everybody in agreement? Okay, if you could send that message, we'd appreciate it. All right, with that, is that all? Okay, we will then adjourn this meeting, and we'll see you in October. Okay?
Thank you.
Everybody do your homework.